Happy holidays, Lightning fans. Good run of December for Tampa Bay, but two more games before the new year. We'll talk about how the Bolts match up against their next two opponents and Nikita Kucherov's rise to the Lightning record book.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber here, welcoming all of you to a holiday episode of Locked On Lightning. Thank you all for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we will get started by talking about some matchups on paper. The Lightning with a key divisional matchup on the heels of a home game against the New York Rangers, who at the beginning of the season might have been considered a favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. The way the season has gone for them, though, not so much. A couple of big trades, including their captain, Jacob Trouba, and one of their star players in Kaapo Kakko, who just went to the Seattle Kraken, been part of just a wild season for the New York Rangers. Through all that, though, they are only 4 points out of a potential postseason spot, 7th in the Metropolitan Division, at 33 points, tied on the bottom with their arch rival, the New York Islanders. Meanwhile, the Canadiens seem to be a team trending in the opposite direction. They were a team that was sitting squarely at the bottom of the Lightning's Atlantic Division for the better part of the NHL season, but the return of their big offseason acquisition in Patrick Laine, despite what he might be saying about his old team in the Columbus Blue Jackets, has been a big help as Laine came back from injury, scored a hat trick, and has continued to produce for Montreal. But the Rangers and the Canadiens have both played significantly more hockey in the month of December, especially as the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning have played 32 games. The Rangers have played 2 more than them, and the Canadiens also have played 2 more than them. And a lot of that is just because of a couple busy months of December. The Habs are doing the Florida swing. They've got an afternoon stop on Saturday in Miami against the Panthers before they finish off their back-to-back against the Lightning. And the Rangers are having a different approach. They are at Amalie Arena on Saturday, and then they go up to Miami for the game on Monday against the Panthers. And these are 2 teams, obviously, the Lightning has some history against, but I think they're taking on Tampa at a good time. We talked about on the show yesterday how this has been the best stretch of the season, I think, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have already won as many games in December as they have in any other month this season, tying October's mark of 7 wins in the month. And if they can get another one this week, it'll be their winningest month of the season. And I think even if the Lightning lose the next 2 games, they're still going to finish December with their highest winning percentage of their first 3 months of an NHL season. So the Lightning are playing 2 teams kind of on different ends of struggling at a really good time. Now, these are still 2 teams that you can't write off. These are still 2 teams that have some solid players that are coached really well. We're going to talk more about the Canadiens coach, who is a familiar name to many Lightning fans. But you know, these aren't the typical teams that you would expect to be towards the bottom of their divisions. Well, that might not be true for the Canadiens. The Rangers are a really interesting case this season. They were one of the better teams in hockey last year, a Stanley Cup favorite, and expected to do the same, but it certainly has not started. And lately, I think with the trades and everything, it's just gotten worse. Now, even Chris Kreider is rumored to be on the trade block, and he is not only a fan favorite, but one of the better players the Rangers have had in, the last few years. So I think the Lightning, though it's always difficult to be on a back-to-back, they did just experience that back-to-back with a home-and-home against the Panthers. The only difference with this one is now the Lightning don't have to go anywhere. Back-to-back games at home have to be easier than those on the road. And for the Lightning, they're certainly open to take both of these, because you got to look at these games and think that record-wise or not, these are still 2 games that the Lightning should win. The Rangers are a team that might be better than the Lightning on paper. In the last 2 seasons, maybe they've finished better than Tampa Bay, including the playoffs. But again, this is just a team that the Lightning are catching at a tough time. They just are coming off of a 5-0 loss to their rival New Jersey Devils. They have lost their last 2 games. And since December 11th, they have won once. A 3-1 win against the Stars on the road last week, with losses to the Panthers, Blues, and Kings, as well as that 5-0 loss to the Devils, and the loss the night before to the Carolina Hurricanes to add to that. But this holiday break is certainly a time that could change things. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, they hope that it gives guys like Connor Geekie time to get back to health, and some of the many other forwards that have been playing a little bit banged up. Zemgus Girgensons was initially questionable for Monday's game against Florida, but he did end up getting in the game. But the fact is, the Lightning are still playing injured. The injuries might not always show up on the injury report, but the guys have just been banged up this season. It's been a physical season so far for Tampa. I mean, I think as a team themselves, their physicality just hasn't compared as well to some of the other teams. I mean, they're usually losing the hit battle, and I don't want to say that they're getting kind of beat up and beat around, but I think they've kind of let other teams have the physical advantage against them. And some of that is because most of their forwards are smaller guys. They're offensively, with their forwards, they're not a team that really goes after guys. They're not a team that makes their money on just punishing hits. They just play the game of hockey really well. And I think the Rangers especially are a bit more physical of a team. But the both teams also have 2 really solid goalies. For a goalie like Montembeault to have a losing record but still have a save percentage at .900, 3 shutouts, and a goal allowed average under 3 is pretty impressive. I mean, again, he's not, of these 2 games, the goalie I'm going to be more worried about is Igor Shesterkin, and with Jonathan Quick as their backup, he might be a little bit older, but that's another really solid goalie combination. I mean, we talked about that with Knight and Bobrovsky with the Panthers, and then Vazzy and Johansson after JJ's big shutout of Florida. And we talked about those teams as having some of the best goalie pairs in the NHL. And I think regardless of the fact that, Quick is a bit different than the goalie he was when he beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2014, he can still play. He's still having a solid season as a backup. And no matter who goes in goal, it's likely to be Shesterkin. But no matter who goes in goal, the Lightning are going to be facing a tough opponent in the New York Rangers. I think of these 2 teams, the Rangers are definitely going to be the tougher opponent, I think, overall. But, Montreal has a guy who knows the Lightning pretty well, Martin St. Louis, the Canadiens coach, so one of the greatest players to ever put on the blue and white of the Lightning, is going to be going on the sidelines against the team where he played the best years of his NHL career and the majority of his NHL career. And, it's obviously been a little bit since Marty has been in the NHL, but so certainly things have changed since he was on the Bolts, but it's still John Cooper at the helm. I mean, he still knows that coach, and he knows a little bit of how the Lightning play, so that could be dangerous. But I'd hope that the Lightning can get that win against the Rangers, since, especially recently, they have just been much better than Montreal. But if you look at Montreal in the months of December, especially since Laine came back, they've been on a tear. They just ended a 3-game win streak with a loss against the Blue Jackets, and they'll have 1 more game played when they go against the Panthers the night before the Lightning. But you've got, playing on the other end of a back-to-back, I think it's a huge advantage that the Lightning are playing a team that is also playing on the other end of a back-to-back, because there's going to be no excuses in terms of tiredness. The only difference is just, backup goalie versus backup goalie. And against most backup goalies in the league, I'll take Jonas Johansson. And he's certainly one of the better backups, I would say. But Montreal has a similar goaltending strategy with Primo and Johansson playing about the same amount of games. The difference, though, is almost a full goal allowed between the two in goals allowed average in 6 games apiece. So two teams very similarly situate their goalies on the other end of a back-to-back. I think the Lightning could definitely take both of these games, but obviously they've got to take down the Rangers first on Saturday. And something that is potentially going to happen on one of Martin St. Louis teams, Nikita Kucherov breaking his old assist record. It is still the record that belongs to Victor Hedman, who needs 4 assists to become the first Lightning player to reach 600. But as Hedman and Coach Cooper both said when he broke the record, Nikita Kucherov is not far along. And that has me thinking, what other records is he close to catching in the Tampa Bay Lightning's books? Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, it's that much better. And it is the perfect gift and a wonderful experience. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's Picks makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything you want to buy tickets for. Toggling the all-in pricing feature also shows the total up front, so you're not surprised by those fees at checkouts. And you can look at the seat, get a panoramic view of exactly the seat that you are going to purchase, and Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference with their lowest price guarantee and cover your purchase with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, make an account, and use the code below, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account on the Game Time app, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off, and download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And it's not game time just yet for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm sure one guy who is itching to go is Nikita Kucherov, who scored a goal against the Florida Panthers before a tough hit on Matthew Tkachuk took him out for the rest of the game on a game misconduct penalty. After Kucherov had scored the first goal, the Lightning finished that with a 4-0 win. It was announced that Kucherov will not receive any additional suspension for his hit on Tkachuk, which means one of the best players in the NHL is going to be back as the Lightning return from their holiday and play against New York. And honestly, I thought it would have been cool if Nikita Kucherov, even if he didn't play, the only benefit of him not playing against the Rangers was it increases the likelihood that he's going to break Martin St. Louis' assist record for the second time this season against Martin St. Louis. Because if Kucherov doesn't get an assist against the Rangers and does against the Canadiens, Martin St. Louis will watch the second Lightning legend break the Lightning legend's record against him while he coaches against that team. That's something that I'd like to see happen, and that is certainly the next mark to fall for Nikita Kucherov, who, even though he has played almost 300 fewer games, more than 300 fewer games with the Lightning than Victor Hedman, he is only 8 assists behind the Lightning captain for most all-time in Bulls history. And as funny as I think it would be for Marty St. Louis to lose a game in which his assist record fell for the second time this season as the opposing head coach, I don't think it's going to happen. With Kucherov missing that last game, I'm thinking we're going to see a legendary game from Kucherov that is going to show him scoring multiple goals and dishing out multiple assists for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm thinking 1 or 2 goals and 2 assists for Kuch against the Rangers. And it will be another record that he ends up getting towards the top of, because if you take a look at just about any Lightning record, Nikita Kucherov is at or near the top of it. 7 3-point games behind Steven Stamkos. He is 8 assists behind Victor Hedman. It leads all Lightning players in 5-point games, and the next 2 Vincent Lecavalier and Braden Point each have 3 5-point games in their Lightning careers. Nikita Kucherov has 7. So which other records do we all think Kucherov will hold for the Tampa Bay Lightning when it all goes away? I think seasons and games are harder to predict, but Kucherov at 30 years old certainly could break that record. The thing is, Victor Hedman is showing no signs of slowing down. Assuming Hedman plays against the Rangers, he's going to have the most games played as a Bolt record. And after next season, it will likely be his record-breaking 17th season with the Lightning. That is not a record I think Kucherov will end up having. When you look at goals and assists and points, those are 3 that I think Kucherov is almost destined to get. Like, it's not even a thought in my mind that he is going to break all of the Lightning scoring records. Right now, Steven Stamkos, obviously the Lightning leader, only player with 4-digit points in Lightning history. Right now, Nikita Kucherov needs 77 points to tie that record, to get to 1,000. I think he does that this year. By the end of 2026, by the end of 2027 at the latest, I think he'll have Stamkos' points record. This year, though, he is probably going to take over second from Martin St. Louis, who is just 30 points ahead of Nikita Kucherov. Power play goals. Stamkos is going to be a tough one to miss. Kucherov, I think he just passes too much, and there are too many good scorers around him. So I don't know if he's going to get that. Power play points, power play assists, maybe. That's a definite possibility, because if you look at power play goals, Kucherov is 5th. I think he'll get to 100. That'll make him the 4th Lightning to reach that mark. 4th Lightning player to reach that mark. But I think, goals, assists are guaranteed. Even Hedman and Cooper admitted that Kuch is going to get that. By the end of the season, he and Hedman will both have 600 assists. And at the pace Kucherov usually goes with his passing, I imagine he's going to overtake Hedman for the top mark in Lightning assist history. But that is going to be sorely up for debate for the rest of this year. By the end of next year, Kucherov is going to set a mark that may not ever be broken. Assist-wise, I think he absolutely has that capability, maybe with points too. Goals, it's hard to say, because you've got Braden Point hot on Kuch's heels. 335 career goals in 755 games. Braden Point has 286 in 608, and he is right behind Kucherov in goals scored. Kuch also needs 31 goals to pass Martin St. Louis and almost 50 to pass Lecavalier. It'll be a couple of years towards the end of his career if Kucherov stays with the Lightning. I think that's a record he's going to end up with. But honestly, I'm looking at the Lightning assist mark, and that is something that I think Kucherov is going to blow out of the water. I mean, if he continues playing at this level or close for another 5 to 7 years, I mean, he could end up with 1,000 assists. It's a definite possibility. That is certainly rarefied air. Power play goals, though, maybe not. Power play assists, probably. Games played. He does a good job of keeping himself off the injury list, but I mean, that's certainly a tough one to follow. And that's just not one of the ones I can really predict right now for Kucherov, but I'd like to think he's definitely going to end up with over 1,000 games played as a Bolt. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's got to be happy with Tampa, and the Bolts, I think the whole front office knows that even talking about trading Kucherov is probably a crime up there. So, he could end up on the Lightning history list when it comes to longevity, but I think the ones most squarely in his sights are going to be just all the scoring marks. Goals, assists, and points are 3 things that I think Kucherov will undoubtedly have by the end of his Lightning career. And hat tricks is another one that is certainly up there. He's had a couple this season, currently has 6. Steven Stamkos has 13 games with 3 or more goals. I mean, I honestly just don't see an offensive record, though, that I don't see Kucherov breaking in even strength. Power play goals, maybe not, but, hat tricks, multi-goal games, multi-point games. I find it hard to imagine that by the time Nikita Kucherov hangs it up, I just don't see anyone else who can come close to that. And do I think that if you look at the roster now, Point is, I think, the only one on the team right now that could catch Kucherov in terms of goals. I think that's a definitely possibility. But he's going to set an assist record for the Tampa Bay Lightning that will begin this year, before the end of the season, regardless of Victor Hedman's presence and the fact that it's only been about a month since he has had the Lightning assist record. That's a record that Kucherov is just going to obliterate. It's going to be kind of back and forth between them this season because Hedman had a little bit of an assist advantage with an extra 5 years in the NHL. But, I mean, we might just see back and forth Kucherov and Hedman trading places depending on games and injuries and everything like that with the assist record. By the end of next year, it's not going to be close, and Kucherov will have already opened up a pretty big lead on Victor Hedman in terms of assists. But that is something that I expect Kucherov to break against the Rangers, though honestly, wouldn't be mad if I saw him surpass St. Louis' assist mark against Martin St. Louis and the Canadiens. But the Lightning will have to take on the Rangers first, as I previously said, and they may have to do it a little bit shorthanded. Connor Geekie missed the last game. A couple other Lightning forwards have been in and out of contests. And, of course, with J.J. Moser on the bench, the defense has certainly seen its share of injuries as well. So we'll take another look at the crunch and go into crunch time for the final segment of today's show. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I know I love betting on which players will score the most goals. I usually end up betting on Kucherov or Braden Point. I kind of switch off, but I like to make my bets easy where I think I know that I can win a ton of money. But any prop that you can imagine, you can bet on that on FanDuel.com, and you can bet on that too. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are back for the final segment of today's show, and we're going to be talking about the Syracuse Crunch because we might see some more Crunch players come up to Tampa Bay. The Crunch themselves, 6 in the North Division in the AHL, 11-9-4. They've had some guys come up and down. We've already seen Declan Carlisle make some waves. Connor Sheary has been up and down. Gage Gonzalez, who began the season in Syracuse, has turned into a mainstay on the 3rd or 4th line for Tampa Bay. So who might be next? I think defensively, I feel like every time we talk about the Crunch, I end up talking about Derek Pouliot. I mean, I think he's just having a solid season for a defenseman to be the leading point scorer on any team. AHL, NHL, doesn't matter. And he also leads the team with 15 assists. I think the Lightning could use that kind of, offensive style defenseman, the guys who can really transition, get through pressure, and bring the puck up the ice. And Pouliot has certainly been able to do that with ease against the AHL. Again, it might be because Pouliot's a guy with a pretty long-sized list of NHL experience. And he's playing against mostly guys that are far younger than him. So that might be why it's easier, and it could be why the Bolts are hesitant to make that call up. But they also have guys like Steven Santini and Declan Carlisle who are younger and have already made an impact at the NHL level. So I don't know if we're going to see Pouliot up here, but honestly, I think right now with Moser out would be the perfect time to do it. I mean, with his offensive capability, with what Pouliot has been able to do on offense in Syracuse, it seems to me like it's a no-brainer to bring him up as an extra defenseman. That way, they don't have to go for more, younger attackers and guys in the AHL without a lot of NHL experience for extra help on offense, unless they absolutely need it to. Connor Sheary is going to be the next guy on offense called up from the Crunch, most likely, because he's been up and down all season pretty much. And even in limited action, 19 games, 6 goals, 8 assists, it's pretty clear that Connor Sheary is good enough to be an NHL player and good enough to be on the Lightning roster. But I mean, if you look at some of those younger guys, there are just more intriguing options at forward for the Lightning to call up. Yes, Sheary is dependable, and you know what you're going to get from him. But I think it's at the time of the season where you might want to start testing out maybe some of these rookies, definitely guys like Jesse Alonen, maybe Joel Teasdale, who's made some big plays for the Crunch this year. Maxim Groshev was a guy that I was really excited about as a prospect for the Lightning, but he just, offensively just doesn't seem to do enough. And I think he needs to take a bigger role on the offense for Syracuse. Part of that might be lines, but I want to see more from some of their younger guys. And you look at the rookies, you look at the younger players on the Crunch right now that maybe could make an impact in the NHL or seem to be worth a look in the NHL. If you look at the forwards, 3 guys come to mind right away. That's Dylan Duke, Nico Huhtinen, and Jesse Alonen. All 3 of them were up with the Lightning in preseason. All 3 of them, played with other prospects in preseason games. And obviously, that's not the best measure of how someone is going to look in the NHL. But Huhtinen has not been super consistent in terms of goal scoring, but he scores in bunches. And you can always use an exciting player like that. Furthermore, he was a guy the Lightning picked up this offseason. He's a very new addition to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think he's going to take a little bit more time before they throw him up there. Dylan Duke is a draft pick who has been maybe the best offensive player for Tampa Bay, for Syracuse so far. At this point in the season, with almost 30 games played, he leads the team in goals with the next closest, Huhtinen, but with 3. He is 2 assists away from getting double-digit goals and assists at the early point in the season. It's something that he can easily do before game number 30. Huhtinen just 1 fewer point in 1 fewer match, and Jesse Alonen is someone that I think could be NHL ready right now. He honestly, if it wasn't for Connor Geekie, he might be on the Lightning. He's been around, another new addition was with Laval Rocket the last couple of seasons. Initially drafted in the 2nd round by the Canadiens, but Ilonen's only 21 years old. And, he's been in the AHL for 4 years. And, if the Lightning are looking, I think, for an instant impact player, I'm honestly not sure that they have one on the Crunch right now. I think the closest to it might be Isaac Howard. And he's still a junior at Michigan State, but he already has quite the pedigree. Gold medal for Team USA with their juniors, won a gold medal with the IHF World Junior Tournament in 2024, getting 2 goals in the final game. He might be NHL ready right now. And Isaac Howard is someone that I'm keeping a close eye on in college hockey. First rounder in 2022, stayed stashed at Michigan State with his youth. And him being stashed there, I think, is going to mean less time in the AHL. It honestly could mean as soon as next year he gets some time up in the NHL. But I think I give Isaac Howard about 2 years before he's a regular with the Tampa Bay Lightning. There has certainly been some talk, mostly rumors, about him, forgoing his eligibility at Michigan State and coming early to the NHL. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think he's someone that as soon as he gets officially on to the NHL roster, outside of the whole stash thing, out of college, done with his student athlete life and stuck on the athlete part of it, he's someone that could be instantly, quickly in the AHL and right up to the NHL, kind of like Connor Geekie was after they acquired him this offseason. But Isaac Howard is a game that will certainly keep in mind and just kind of keep mentioning here and there just to check his progress. But I don't think this year he's someone that is going to be called up. I think Pulio, I'm surprised, hasn't had a look yet, because I think he'd be the perfect 7th defenseman, especially with Moser out. You keep Radish on that first line with Hedman, because that works. They know how to play together very well. And then Pulio, who has been playing more as an offensive defenseman in Syracuse, could easily be that 7th defenseman. Get him on a line with a couple other offensive players and see what he can do. I think that might be more of a break glass in case of emergency strategy for Tampa, because I think they have put themselves in the position that they're square in the middle of a playoff race. They're leading the wild card right now. And once the games balance out, they could jump to as high as 2nd place, considering they have at least 3 games in hand on every single team above them. The closest to them right now in terms of games played, above the Lightning, the Maple Leafs. 4 more points in 3 more games. So once those even out, the Lightnings can cement an even better place for themselves in the standings and might not have to go for a big Hail Mary like Pulio as kind of a test as that 7th defender, because on just the regular top 6 lines, I don't know if Pulio would make the cut right now. But as a 7th defender, I think he's a really solid option. Until then, Connor Sheary might come up if there's more injury problems with the Lightning forwards. And Jesse Ylonen is someone that I really want to see in the NHL this year. He's played solid. His numbers don't jump off the page, but I think he's been a solid contributor. And I think this year, next year, he might end up on the Lightning roster permanently if they don't end up trading him. But he's someone that I'd certainly like to see get called up. Dylan Duke and Nico Huhtinen, I think, are a bit more of a long shot, but only because they're rookies. Next year, we'll be talking a lot more, if they're not already up in the NHL, about their potential of helping in those kind of injury situations when the Lightning may need to look to minor leagues for help. But that is something we can talk about a little bit later on. I'm going to give you guys the rest of the day off from Locked On Lightning. But first, I want to thank all of you so much for listening to this episode and making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, and on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. We really appreciate the support from you guys because we make the show for you guys, our fans. So thank you again for tuning in. Please enjoy your holiday and go Bolts.